Welcome to the Mom Owned and Operated podcast, the podcast about moms and for moms, where we have candid conversations about running a business, raising a family, and remembering ourselves. I'm your host, Rita Suzanne, a single mom of four, digital strategist, and provider of no-nonsense business strategies and tactics. Hi, this is Mom Owned and Operated. I'm Rita Suzanne, and today I have my friend Takema with me, and I'm so grateful that you joined us today, Takema. Please tell us a little bit about you, your family, and your business.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Hello, everybody. My name is Takema, and I am a business owner of a company called Changing Trends Behavior Consulting. I provide behavior support for families. I am a Board Certified Behavior Analyst, and I provide personalized coaching and consultation for parents who are looking for additional help for their children and just need some extra support, for any problem behaviors that they're having in the home, or just teaching the children new skills. I definitely am someone that you could reach out to. I am now a new mom to a 6-month-old baby. My husband and I are very excited and very sleep deprived.
Right.
But it's been a beautifully challenging journey, to say the least.
I can't imagine. So how long have you been in business?
I've been in business for the last 4 years.
Okay. And then before you had your business, what did you do?
Before I had my business, I was still doing the same, in the same profession. I just was working for another company.
Yeah.
And so it's just been interesting, just kind of like moving along the journey of, being with someone else's business and their model, still doing the same thing, but I'm doing the same thing now, but my way,
So what would you say has been like the biggest challenge that you've had starting up your own business? Because, working for somebody else is so different than working for yourself.
Absolutely. The biggest challenge, I think, was even as basic as how do you start one? Like, you have to incorporate yourself,
right.
The LLC, you have to pay for fees, a business license. Where do I go to pay for the license? It's just,
Right.
Even just the structure, the foundation of establishing one was challenging. It took me forever to come up with a name that took, just the foundation of creating a business was super hard. And then on top of that, then comes the gaining clients, so it was just one thing after the next that was challenging. And when you're doing it from scratch and you don't know anybody that's doing it and you're trying to figure out all on your own, everything is a challenge.
Yeah. What I found when I started my business was the hardest thing was because I think that when you're working for somebody else, you just have to do your job, right? You don't have to worry about the getting of the clients and the marketing and the networking and all of these things. And I feel like that's the hardest part of it. It's not like keeping my stuff in FreshBooks and, like figuring that stuff out. It's
you can figure it out.
Yeah, it's the consistency of marketing and networking that is the hardest, because you still have to serve your clients, but you still have to do these other things at the same time. And so it's interesting that you said like that was your hardest thing, because now I'm changing my focus to focus more on like business foundations and teaching people how to really structure and set up their business for success, so it's so needed, I think, especially for us women.
Absolutely. And for new entrepreneurs, I think the foundation to me is so crucial, because I've seen other people's businesses. And don't get me wrong, having a business is a lot of work and you don't really want to judge the way other people do stuff. But at the same time, you see how people do stuff and you're like, I would do it different, and you could see sometimes in different companies how the foundation just has cracks. And if you don't have a solid flow with systems, you're constantly trying to catch up because you don't have a great process established from the beginning. And to me, I was very like adamant about trying to be as streamlined as possible from the beginning. So I'm trying to figure out what to do at all times, you know, and trying to catch up. And so I think what you're doing is so needed for new entrepreneurs. Absolutely.
Well, yeah, I think it's important too, because systems like you said, to do it from the beginning. And a lot of people, they don't do it from the beginning. They wait until things start to get busy. And then it's like this, you know, ball of anxiety that they have to deal with because they're trying to constantly catch up. And so if you set everything up from the beginning, like for success, then I think that that's going to be beneficial in the long term when you start getting all these clients and, you know, and making more money. And it's not hard to set up your systems. You know, it's pretty, but a lot of people, they don't know where to start, you know?
Right. And it's also like a trial and error too, right? Because you use certain products, or you use certain, you know, apps, you know, and you have to figure out, this doesn't really
fit my needs.
I need something else. I need, you know, and I mean, you always constantly looking for something that's going to fit you, right?
Trying this app. Asking everybody, which project management thing do you use? And then switching.
Exactly.
Spending a whole day.
What software and this, and, you know, so it's also trying to find something that's going to fit what you do and way that you like to do stuff. And, you know, so it's a bit challenging in that sense too, but it's so important to do it from the beginning.
Yeah. I like that you said that you recognize that there are things that other people do that you don't want to incorporate into your business, because I think a lot of people, what they do is they look at everybody else and they're like, I want to do what they're doing. I want it to be like this. And really what I do is I try to keep like seriously like blinders on and don't even look at anybody else, because I will get distracted and I'm just like, oh, that's a great idea. Boom. And here I go into something else, you know? So I think like you said, like really recognizing what you don't want is really important, and just focusing on what you do want and not looking at everybody else, because it's so easy to see what you think is success, right? And then say, oh, I need to do this, when you don't even know if it's successful for them.
You don't really know, you know, and sometimes it might look a lot better than it actually is. And it could be a bit deceiving, you know, at times. And it's hard, especially in the beginning, when you're starting out a business, you look at other people and you're like, I want that, you know, but you have to walk to get to that space. And so they didn't just become what they became overnight either.
Right.
So it can be really difficult wanting to be there already, you know, but it takes time.
It does take time. And I think that's the most important lesson, because, you know, we want to jump in and show everybody like, look, I can do this. I can do it all by myself. But if you're mimicking somebody else, like you're not going to be successful, because it's really not your thing, right? You're mimicking them, and it's going to feel inauthentic, and people aren't going to like that at all.
And people could kind of pick up your vibe too, right? You know, and if something is not truly in alignment with what you or who you are, you know, then it's not going to come off as authentic, you know, as you want to be. And there's going to always be like this disconnect, and you're not going to find the clients that you really want to find, because there's just something that's just not right. You know, you're trying to push something that you're not really wanting to do, or who you really are, you know. So
I've had this website course thing in my to-do list. I'm going to teach people how to make their own website. It's going to be so great. I kid you not, Takema, 1 year it's been sitting in my queue, and I've just realized the reason why I refuse to do it is because I just don't feel that, you know, like connected or energetic with it. Like it's just like I'm procrastinating because it's not a good fit for me, you know. And I don't want that long-term like commitment of updating this thing that I'm not super excited about, you know. So
you have to, and especially with stuff like that, it's like what is going to take your energy. And even like, you know, just talking about being a parent, you don't have as much time. Like time is different. And so if you are not passionate or interested an ounce
right.
what it is, then it's just going to drag you down, and you don't have time to waste on stuff that's not really, you know, what you're interested in.
So speaking of that, being a parent, because I find it super challenging. I'm so jealous of my friends that don't have kids, right? Like I feel like I love my kids, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I'm saying I'm jealous of the entrepreneur friends because it feels like they can get so much more done than I can, right? And I feel like, oh, I'm so like they can do all these things. They don't have to get up at this time and do all these things. And I wouldn't say jealous. I'm envious of that aspect of their life. I love my kids, but
you could do this. Okay.
Yeah. I don't, I was like, oh, I don't want my,
know what you mean, though.
Yeah. So now that you have your daughter, and how has your business changed? Like, what's an average day look like now?
Well, I mean, it's changed a lot because, you know, like you were saying, I was that person not too long ago because she's, you know, she hasn't been in existence that long.
Right.
I was that friend who was able to do so much, and it almost was like not prepared for that major shift, you know. I knew it was going to be a big shift, but I almost felt like I should have done more before she came.
Oh, yeah.
It was almost like this feeling like, wait, I
didn't prepare enough.
I didn't prepare enough. I didn't stay up long enough. I didn't do all this extra stuff in advance, you know? And so I understand that sentiment, because now I'm like, you know, I have friends I know who are doing stuff, and I'm like telling them, listen, you need to be doing more. I don't have time. What do you mean you don't have time? I don't have time.
Right. Oh, you mean friends without children?
Yeah.
And you're like, you could get way more done than I can.
Way more done, exactly. So now, like, my day is a lot different because I'm also, you know, taking care of her. So it's definitely been a mix of having off and on time, you know, doing stuff late at night, not sleeping, you know, having to sacrifice sleep to have alone time, you know, to get some extra stuff done.
Right.
Yeah. And it's just been having to compromise on certain things, but that's the only way right now, especially living in this time, is even more challenging to get stuff done. But, you know, I can't get as much done as I used to, and I have to be okay with that. Yeah.
Have you found that sometimes, like when you do those chunks, I mean, because everybody does, like we all do that. Like I'm going to focus for 2 hours on this, and then I'll spend time with my kids, and then I'll come back to it. Do you find that if you put a restriction on your time limit, because some people say that if they restrict themselves to certain time, then they actually feel like they get more done during those restricted times. Personally, I don't, because I get interrupted about 1,000 times by my kids, but I can see why someone would say that they're able to focus more.
I think it depends on the day, because the same method is not.
It doesn't work consistently.
It doesn't work. Yeah. Like, what's the word to use? So I think it depends on the day, and it depends on the task, because I did at one point say, okay, well, I'm going to be a time block person, and this is what I'm going to do. But I find like it's not effective every single time, you know? And so sometimes I would do like a time block, like, okay, this is my time period. I'm just going to get as much stuff done, whatever that is, get it done. In that period, and see at the end, okay, I did a good amount, or okay, I didn't really get that much done. And then other times I'll put like a time limit and say, okay, I have this task. I'm going to try to complete it in 50 minutes or 20 minutes. And then if the timer goes beyond that point, that's okay. But at least I'm trying to clock myself just to see how efficient I could be at doing something, one particular task, and completing that.
Yeah, it's a lot. And so the parents that you're working with, are they like are the kids within a certain age range, or do they have special challenges that you're trying to help the parents with? Because that's a factor too.
It's a variety. So, I mean, in my career, I have worked with families that do have children with special needs, and also, children that don't have a diagnosis at all. So what I do, behavior analysis definitely is very well known in some communities for being a therapy that's used for individuals have been diagnosed with autism. However, it's not just for that. It's kind of become very well known for that. But behavior is behavior. People engage in behavior every day, adults, children. So it's applicable to any ages, to any situation. It's not only something for problem behavior. It's something if you want to increase a skill that you don't have, you want to increase, even like what we're talking about, time management, time efficiency, things like that. You can apply behavioral skills and strategies to increase behaviors you want to see or decrease ones that are not, being as useful to you. So I work with parents with all ages, and just providing, customized and personalized support based on what the needs are.
Yeah, I love that because, a lot of times we think it has to be the negative behavior to fix. But I bought my kids this book that teaches them how to be like an entrepreneur, how to make $1 million from this dollar. Right. And I told them, if you read this book, I'll give you $50, but you have to read it all, and you have to explain it to me in depth. Right. Because they're kids, they're going to try to, I read it. No, you didn't.
Exactly.
But what it did was one of my nieces actually read it, and she didn't finish it. But as she was reading it, she started implementing one of the things. She was like, okay, I'm going to become a dog walker. So she was like mapping everything out. She went out on her first day, got some clients, and made herself $50 in one day, which encouraged the other kids. They're like, oh, wait a minute.
Exactly.
They're like, what can I do? And this same one, after we moved, she turned around and started making homemade lip glosses. Right. So she's like, I need to, she wanted to do something else to make money. And so instead of coming and asking me, can I have money? She decided that she was, and I was like, oh my gosh, I just love the entrepreneurial spirit in this one. It's so amazing.
And you were implementing behavior strategies without even really realizing or specifically knowing, but you had a target, which was for them to read the entire book. And at the end of that, there was a reward, right? And so that, scenarios like that are what I talk to parents about, is that you can do that. But what happens a lot of times is then, let's just say the book had 5 chapters, right? And sometimes where a parent might give that same thing. I want you to read the book, and at the end you can have the $50. Maybe a child might read 1 chapter and then they still get the $50. And it's like, no, that's where we would intervene. And I'm coaching parents and talking about those changes, because if you want your child to read more books, that's your overall long-term goal.
Right.
You have these the short-term goals in between. Read this book, read that book, and these are the rewards attached to it. Then you have to follow through with that. And that's where I come in, and I'm kind of helping parents see what they're doing, because sometimes they're not getting the outcome that they want. And I'm like, well, not because you can't, it's because you have to change what you're doing. Because if your child can read 1 chapter and get the $50, why would I read the whole book?
Why would you? Right.
I'm going to do it. And so that's kind of where I'm coming in to help parents see what they need to change, so that they can have their kids do skills that they want them to do, like reading. Reading is a skill increase. That's something you would want to see more of, So,
because I'd like to see less video games and more reading.
Exactly. And we would come up with a plan for that. Like how many games are they playing on a daily basis? Okay. Implementing like a time schedule. They have to They get to play for X amount of time. They get to choose when they get to do it. But if you decide they get to have an hour and a half of video games a day, let's just say, if they choose to do that in the morning time, well, you've already used up your day. That's up to them.
Right.
And also it also depends on the ages too, because when you have a child 5, it's different to have a child that's 12. Right. When they're 12, they should be a lot more involved in decision making because they're at that age where they're coming into themselves. They're kind of figuring out who they are. So
if it was up to my 12-year-old, he'd be playing video games all day. Every day.
Exactly.
I have time limits on the games. Like I would take away everybody's devices at 8:30, and I don't even let them keep them. And I know every device needs to come in my room, because they're so sneaky. Yes. And then in the mornings, non-school days when they have to, or in even school days, they have to do certain things before they can even get their devices.
That's great.
So I feel like it lays a foundation, but then they go to their dad's house and he just lets them get up and stay up. And I'm like, I feel like the bad guy. Why am I the bad guy all the time?
You do. But children need rules, as much as it might feel like, oh my gosh, it's like the structure definitely is great and it's so necessary. So whatever you're doing is great. And children learn to adapt, right? And they know what they can do with who they could do it with and where they could do it. So
I agree. Okay. I think my 12-year-old, he's like, he'll be so excited to go over to his dad's, and like during the summer, they'll stay there for a little while, and he'll say, that he missed me. He wants to come home. And then he's like, I'm so tired, because he stays up all night, and so I think that he does want the structure, but only, a little bit, Yeah. He still wants to try to just do nothing but video games. But, then I'm like, let's go on a bike ride, and I make them. He's like, no, I don't want to. I don't care. Let's go, so.
You have to, especially this generation is so like crazy that they have so much more access to technology that we did not have. I did not have when I was younger. It didn't exist, social media did not exist. Phones, what is that?
Right. Like, I mean, we had him in the wall, like, we had to share with our siblings.
Exactly. So you pushing to be outside, that's not something that a lot of kids do naturally now because they have so much stuff available to them to keep them inside, so that's good.
Luckily, my kids love to go outside and play with the neighborhood kids, and ride their bikes and everything. But, like you said, but when we lived in the last place, it wasn't as much. I think it's just because of where our neighborhood is very kid friendly. But I love all of these ideas and strategies, and I'm glad that it's focusing more on positive. I mean, not always, but
Yeah, definitely. And sometimes you have to implement stuff where there's like restrictions or, because something happened, a behavior that maybe that's like an undesired behavior that maybe that there's something that's paired with it that's maybe not so favorable. But what people have to also remember is that like, with any behavior, whether it's a positive behavior or a negative one, there's a consequence associated with anything that you do. And in behavior analysis, for us, consequence means what happens after the behavior. Traditionally, when people hear consequence, they think of something really bad.
Right.
You suffer the consequences, and for us, it's not that. It's just like, okay, the child did this, what happened afterward? And usually what happens after is what we come in and change so that the behavior itself changes.
Right.
So similarly, like back to the example of the reading the book, if the child reads one chapter, they get the $50. Or if a child reads the whole book and gets the $50.
Right.
What happens after is the consequence, and we change that. So versus, where a parent would give the 50 for the one chapter, we would change that and say, no, you could give him 10.
Right.
Instead,
because he portion.
Right. Exactly. So we would change something. So, yes, the reading one chapter is undesired, but you can always work on that. Slowly. So that's what we do.
No, I'm like, you do it all or nothing. You finish it up.
Exactly. You could do that too. And that's another strategy, you know.
I just feel like I'm kind of strict, but I just have high expectations for my kids, and I want them to succeed. And I feel like a lot of parents, they are afraid to discipline their kids, or like to they don't want, it's like, I don't have to abuse them. I'm just taking stuff away from them.
Exactly. And I see it all the time. I see it all the time, and I see the struggle, and I see the, I don't want to. And it's just like,
because it makes them uncomfortable, I think, like the bad guy. I'm the bad guy now.
Yeah. Discomfort is necessary. A child we are not meant to be happy and pleased at all times.
Right.
We are meant to grow and change, and we have to have lessons, and we have to teach them different things, because if not, then the behavior is just going to stay the same. And a lot
get worse. I've seen some where it just
escalates. Really, really. And I tell parents all the time, I said, listen, when they're 5, you might be okay still dealing with that. But that 5-year-old is going to become a 15-year-old.
Right.
And it's not cute when they're 15.
Oh, believe me, I have to nip mine in the butt all the time, because they're at their preteen and one's a teen age, where they try to push the limitations and the boundaries, and I say, you know what, I don't really care, but you're not going to disrespect me. I'm the one doing all the stuff for you, so I don't care if you get upset. And but you're not going to disrespect me in the process of you being upset. And so my kids are pretty, they're kids, but
well mannered.
They're good. Yeah, everybody says they're good.
Yeah, that's good, and they're well mannered. But they're also children, where they're pushing boundaries and rules, and children are supposed to do that because they're growing and they're learning. And then us as the adults, our job is to shape, right? So yes, they're going to maybe talk back or like push and question, as they should, but teaching them how to do it respectfully. Yeah. Sure, you could question it. Sure, you could be upset. How do you get upset though? It's okay to not like what I said. How do you tell me that? Fine.
Without pushing the boundaries or making it work,
exactly. So that's really what I want parents to know, anybody listening to know, like if you feel like you're struggling, it shouldn't be a struggle. Right. And feeling like it's a struggle, then you might need some help. You know,
I think that's a great idea, because I think that a lot of parents need that push and that confirmation, because I have friends who have kids, and I'll say to them, no, you have to do this, you have to do that, or else it's going to get worse, and have helped them to understand like why they need that assistance. And, so I love everything you're doing.
Thank you.
So let's get into our last little bit here. And so Mom Owned and Operated is about, raising our families, running a business, but also remembering yourself. And as a new mom, how are you remembering yourself? Like, what are you doing? Or are you?
Oh boy. What am I doing to take care of myself? I am remembering that I need to take care of myself, to be honest. It's just, new motherhood has just kind of been going through this, like a fog, like a phase. Like, what just happened to me?
Right.
And so I'm really kind of paying attention to how I'm feeling. And that in itself is taking care of myself, because if I feel like I just need a minute, then I say that I need a minute. I'm very intentional about even just like my, in the morning, like when I get up, just doing like my skincare routine and being diligent about that. That makes me feel good. And that's something I've been doing, like trying to have that dedicated little time to myself, just to take care of myself, So just little things like that I've been doing, drinking my tea, which makes me feel good, so I don't get to do self-care for long periods of time, but whatever time I have, I try to really just center myself and just really enjoy what I'm doing for that period of time.
I think that's great because, I even say like sometimes I just need a minute and I'll lock all my kids out of my room and I'm just like, like just leave me and I'll get back to you when but I can leave them alone. I can just, like
you can't.
You can't.
At that stage, I have a long way to go.
Right. But I think that just remembering yourself, like remembering, like you said, taking a moment and even doing that little bit of taking care of yourself, because I know that when my kids were younger, I really didn't even do that. It was really, and I think it's hard for a lot of moms to even think about themselves because they're so focused on their baby, which I understand, but you still have to take care of yourself.
You do. And I recognize that. And I said that even before, I was like, I don't want to lose myself in her, but I am completely in love, but at the same time, I could see just how they could just suck everything out of you.
If you let them, right?
I could just like, wow. Like, I mean, just as simple as, she's hungry, she's crying. And then I realized I haven't had anything to drink all day.
Right.
When did I have something to drink? But she's had like 5 bottles already and I haven't had any, just like when you look at that, it's just like, what did I have a snack? Like, when did I but she's fine and she's fit.
Right. But you can do both, right? It's like you can do both, but you just don't even think about yourself at all.
You don't. And I'm like, no. So I'm like intentional, like just trying to just simple changes, like when I feed her, I make sure I get a drink at the same time. I'm like doing both at the same time to ensure like I'm also taking care of myself, because I would go hours without drinking and I'm like,
why? And then why do I have a headache? Why am I
would have a headache. I feel like, what did I do? But she is taken care of. And I'm like, no, I can't. Like, she is, I have to be somewhat functional.
I mean, because if you're not feeling well, then, how can you take care of them at your best? Right.
Exactly. So just not losing myself. I mean, you do to a degree, but I don't want to not recognize myself, I'm trying to be very mindful of that, to still recognize who I am and not be somebody completely different. I know, you change as you become a parent, but I don't want
to. But that's not just that's not the only identity that you have. You are still you, even though you're a mom at the same time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's like, I have one client and I told her she had some pictures of her and her baby. And I said, I used this one with you and the baby, but I just used this one of just you because you are more than just a mom.
Then just right. It is a new identity. And I'm grateful for that new identity, but I do want to still remember what I enjoyed, what I liked, and not lose that, because she's
you don't want to be in the car like singing her songs and not hearing any like current music because you're so involved in the kid music.
Exactly. And I'm like watching all these like Nickelodeon shows or something.
She's like, I haven't watched a real movie in forever.
Exactly. I'm trying to make sure I'm doing for me,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay, so where can everybody find you online?
Well, if anybody's interested, they could go to my website, which is www.changingtrends.org. And also on Instagram at changingtrends.llc. So those are the 2 places you could find me. And people are free to, on the website, I have an email if anybody wants to send an email or call. And I'll be willing to talk to you and see if I could help.
Yay. Thank you so much, Takema, for taking the time and chatting with everybody.
You are so welcome. Thank you for having me.
And there you have it. I want to encourage you to remember that being a mom who runs her own business is not easy. We all struggle, but just keep moving forward and don't forget to make time for yourself. As moms, we are usually the first thing to go to the bottom of the list. If your business is overwhelming you and you need real solutions, not just some sugar-coated suggestions, apply to work with me at ritasuzanne.com/apply.